It happens every year in fantasy football, and 2019 is going to be no different. There's always a few players on draft day that may slide a couple picks later than they should, a couple rounds later than they probably should, and it may just be because their name's not very sexy. But these guys, they're potential league winners, and we need to start looking at some of these guys for 2019. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Hey, we're talking potential league winners today, right? These are a few names. They may not be sexy. Yes, you may actually see some of their names on the side of the screen and be like, why would I take those guys this year? Hear me out. Some of them are at a pretty decent value, and they could really turn into potential league winners. That's what you're really trying to find this time of year. Who's going to slip in the draft? Who doesn't have that name value that could provide huge fantasy value for your team? And that's kind of where these guys fall in. I got a couple here from each position, and we're going to talk about it and see if these guys may be potential league winners for us here in 2019. Now, I pulled a lot of this information from fantasyfootballcalculator.com. Link in the description. Go check it out if you haven't yet. Lots of great tools and research options there for you also. The Fantasy Football Draft Guide for us here for 2019 is now available for pre-order on our website, TheFantasyHeadliners.com. Also, a link in the description. Go pre-order yours now. Cheap price right now, $19.99. Gets you a ton of information for the 2019 fantasy football season. Go check that out also. But for now, let's get into a few of these names who could win us our fantasy football championships for 2019. All right, let's start off at quarterback. Why? Because a lot of you guys are probably out there scratching your head saying to yourself, man, has Jake lost it? He's got Dak Prescott listed as a possible league winner. No, I have not lost it. Things are actually lining up to be a pretty good year for Dak Prescott. Now, a lot of the hype, a lot of the preseason hype of Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Luck, that comes with a heavy price tag on draft day. Maybe you want to load up on running backs and receivers, and you want to wait on quarterback. Yes, there's a lot of great options, but Dak Prescott is somebody who right now, his ADP is at 144, and it's going to stay in that general area no matter how much closer we get to the season. He's durable. He's never missed a game. Somebody you can count on being there and playing. The offensive line, it was banged up bad last year. They come back. Are they more closer to full health the start of this season? Can they give Dak Prescott more time? We already know he has better weapons now, right? Michael Gallup coming in his second year. They still have Amari Cooper, just signed Randall Cobb. Jason Witten may be 65 years old, but he's going to be out there catching passes once again. At least he won't be calling football games because he's got to be better playing tight end at that age than he was calling football games. It's just something that things are starting to turn the corner for the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. He's had 6 rushing touchdowns every year so far in his career. And that ADP is great. It really gives you the opportunity to load up on other picks, other positions earlier in the drafts. And it may be a little bit of a surprise to a lot of you, but listen to this. Over the past 3 seasons of Dak Prescott as the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys in fantasy football, in 2016, he finished as QB6. In 2017, QB10. In 2018, QB10. And right now, he's QB 22 in drafts. That's great value. I'm not saying that you have to. He's a must-have. You absolutely have to get it. But if you're looking for the value later in the drafts, Dak Prescott going at an ADP of 144 could be an absolute steal for your fantasy football team. Next up, let's talk about David Johnson for a second. He could actually slip into the second rounds of drafts this year, and it's not even that far-fetched to think that. I mean, I know he had a down season last year in 2018. He only ended up with 940 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, added in 50 receptions for 446 yards. Yes, I get it. He had a down year. The Cardinals, they were absolutely horrible last year. That offense was horrible. The play calling of Mike McCoy early in the year absolutely handcuffed David Johnson. Well, new coaching staff is there. Cliff Kingsbury and his new cell phone allowance policy is in the building in Arizona. And we as fantasy football players could really benefit from it. David Johnson is a workhorse 3-down back. He's going to see volume. This is a very high-powered air raid style offense. In the past 6 seasons that Cliff Kingsbury was in college, yes, I know, college different than pros, but offense he's going to try to bring to the NFL. His running backs in that offense have averaged 140 rushing yards per game. he's definitely somebody that has that workload coming to him. They've already come out and said, hey, we're going to use David Johnson. There's not a whole lot of other options. We don't know the quarterback situation as of yet, whether it's Rosen, whether they take Kyler Murray in the draft. They have Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, but outside of that, not a whole lot. David Johnson is somebody who you could possibly grab in the first 2 or 3 picks of the second round. Pair him with the stud that you took in the first round. You could be staring something like a DeAndre Hopkins and David Johnson in back-to-back picks. Now, don't get me wrong. I like to go running back early. But if I can get the top or one of the top wide receivers and pair him up with a David Johnson, who is a potential top 3, 4, 5 pick, if he can get the usage this year on an improved Cardinals team, sign me up for it. One of the biggest problems they had last year was offensive line. They've already started to address it, and they may do a little bit more during the draft. They went out, they've signed J.R. Sweezy from Seattle, Marcus Gilbert from Pittsburgh. They're trying to make an attempt to get this offensive line back where it needs to be. David Johnson could be an absolute steal. If he's sitting there at one of the first picks of this second round and you do not take him, do not come back to me crying that you lost your fantasy football league because you passed on a potential top 2, 3, 4 running back in the second round. Don't pass up on David Johnson. Dude could have a huge year in 2019. All right, next up, Kenyon Drake, running back, Miami Dolphins. And this is somebody who I came on this channel last year and was just begging people to avoid Kenyon Drake. I didn't like the whole Frank Gore situation there. Well, Adam Gase and that coaching staff are gone, and so is old man Frank Gore, only leaving behind Kalen Ballage to back up Kenyon Drake. Now, Kenyon Drake is somebody who, if given the opportunity, could really turn into a solid 3-down running back for the Miami Dolphins. Like I said, new coaching staff is there. Coming over from New England, Brian Flores bringing the offensive coordinator from New England also, which was the wide receivers coach. It's definitely something where, if given the opportunity, and we'll have to wait and see through the draft, but if it's only Kenyon Drake going into the year, listen, the New England Patriots are very familiar with what Kenyon Drake could do. He would light them up on occasion over the past few years, and they remember that. They're going to use this kid, especially if there's no other picks made in the NFL draft. Kenyon Drake is somebody who you could get as a potential 3-down running back in the 5th to 6th round of your fantasy leagues, depending on your league size. I mean, the guy's averaged 4.7 yards per carry for his career. The problem is he doesn't get consistent carries and a consistent workload. Decent pass catcher out of the backfield, capable of goal line work. Kenyon Drake is lining up to have a very, very good year. Keep an eye on it here in the offseason. If they don't sign anybody else in Miami leading up to the season, maybe they may get somebody, there towards the training camp. It's like a third stringer. That's not what I'm talking about. As long as they don't spend a high draft pick or go out and spend a bunch of money on whatever remaining running backs are in free agency, I really like Kenyon Drake this year. At the price that you can get him at, sign me up. Wide receivers now. First one on the list, Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. I guess you could kind of say he had a breakout year in 2018, right? He only had 57 catches, but turned him into 965 yards and 10 touchdowns. And Doug Baldwin, who we thought at one point could come back this season and be healthy, yeah, probably not going to happen. He's already getting ready for his 3rd off-season surgery. The guy is, I guess, all of a sudden made of paper mache and old elementary school glue because it's not working. He's not healthy. And he wasn't healthy last season, and Tyler Lockett really took advantage of it. Now, Tyler Lockett never saw more than 7 targets in a game, which was kind of a surprise when I looked into it. However, Russell Wilson's quarterback rating when he targeted Tyler Lockett was a perfect 158.3, one of the most efficient wide receivers in the looks that he got, and he finished 2018 with 0 drops. The kid had a great season. Can he build momentum? Can he carry that into 2019? There's really not a whole lot of other options in that offense outside of him and Doug Baldwin that are really a huge threat to take away targets from him. He finished as a top 15 wide receiver in 2018, depending on your scoring format. But right now, he's currently wide receiver 29 off the board. It's great value, an ADP right now of 69, getting him right there in the 6th, 7th round, depending on league size. And he's somebody who you will be able to count on week in and week out, especially if Doug Baldwin continues to deal with injuries on a weekly basis. Next wide receiver, Dante Pettis of the San Francisco 49ers. Current ADP is 87th, so 8th, 9th round, depending on league size. And the guy ended 2018 on an absolute tear. He really took a step forward there at the end of the season. He ended up with 27 catches, 467 yards, and 5 touchdowns, but most of that, almost all of that, came between weeks 10 and 15. The kid really started to take a step forward. Now, it looks like he may be the number one receiving option in San Francisco. They really don't have a clear-cut number one. It's up for the taking, and Dante Pettis right now is my leader in the clubhouse to get that number one spot. Now, does he build chemistry with Jimmy G? Really didn't get an opportunity to play much with Jimmy G before he got injured last season. Do they have time to build that chemistry? Yeah, they should. They should have all offseason. And Dante Pettis really excelled, getting separation on the targets he did receive. How much separation did he get, are you asking? Well, about 2.38 yards per target. That's ridiculously wide open as far as NFL terms go. Actually, he was ranked number 1 in this stat. The guy has the ability to separate himself from the defender. If he can get on the same page as Jimmy G, this guy could eat up huge amounts of targets and yards all season long. And right now with an ADP of 87, it's definitely somebody who you want to pay attention to and focus on here in the offseason and the closer we get to draft season. Now, this ADP may creep up once we get to the preseason if he starts showing out and they really start feeding him the ball early and often. But an improved run game can only help him. We know Tevin Coleman is there now, Jerick McKinnon coming back, Matt Breida is there. There's like 62 running backs on the roster of San Francisco. If they can get that run game going and opened up and get those guys in space, that's only going to make things easier for Dante Pettis. Build that chemistry with Jimmy G. You could be looking right now at a mid to high end, wide receiver 2 for Dante Pettis. And right now, he's currently wide receiver 35 being taken. Don't forget about Dante Pettis on draft day. Let's pay attention to him here in the offseason. He could be a huge steal for you here in 2019. All right, let's talk about a tight end, the football kind here for a second. Jared Cook of now, the New Orleans Saints, current ADP 135. Now, yes, over the next few months, that ADP is going to creep up once people start mock drafting while he's a member of the New Orleans Saints. I get it. However, as of right now, he's still somebody that's going to be the back half of the tight end ones, right around tight end 10, 11, 12-ish, and he's somebody who could way outperform that. Last season, 2018, as a member of the Oakland Raiders who really struggled last season, Oakland Raiders, they still ended up with 68 catches, 896 yards, and 6 touchdowns, set career highs in targets, receptions, yards, touchdowns, and that was all in the mess that was the Oakland Raiders last season. Now, we put him with the New Orleans Saints, one of the best offenses in football, one of the offenses that really needs some playmakers. We have Michael Thomas, we have Alvin Kamara, and then what do we have? We have Traquan Smith, we have Ted Ginn, but they're kind of hit and miss, and we haven't seen consistency from Traquan Smith yet. There is a big opportunity for Jared Cook to eat up huge amounts of targets and yards in this offense. He gives them another big-bodied red zone threat for Drew Brees to look towards. And don't forget, and I don't want to sound this is like cliche as it is, but remember when Jimmy Graham was there? I mean, Drew Brees really used to use his tight ends, and he's really gotten away from it because they haven't had one of those big athletic tight ends in a long time. Now they have one. Jared Cook is going to be utilized in this offense. They signed him out of free agency to use him. Coming off a great year. Love Jared Cook. Let's watch his ADP over the next few months. If he doesn't get too expensive, he gives you that opportunity to wait a few rounds for your tight end and still end up with a possible top 5 option at the position. All right, those were a few guys I have labeled here as potential league winners. Now, a lot of you asking the questions, well, what about all the big names like Saquon Barkley? Obviously, you want as many of those names as you can get. We're trying to find some of these guys who are going to slip a little bit in their drafts. Maybe the bad season from last year, like a David Johnson, causes them to slip this year. Pay attention to those things. Look for those things because it doesn't mean that they're going to have a bad 2019 just because they had a bad 2018. That's really not how it works in football. Things change from year to year. Some of these guys who we were really down on last year, we may be really high on this year. Start looking at them. Let's pay attention to these names here in the offseason because if nothing changes, I really like all these guys at the value that you can get them during your fantasy football draft. Now, one last time, before I forget, head over to TheFantasyHeadliners.com. Get your draft kit pre-order. We will have a ton of information, a lot of exclusive information that you will only be able to find on this channel. Great price for everybody out there, $19.99. Really appreciate the support. If there are other names out there that you have questions about that may slip in drafts, throw it down below. Maybe we can start to, find a few more names that will be out there as potential league winners, potential value picks on draft day. That's what we're looking for, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about it. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later.